All right, so are you rolling? Good. Let's start this thing. Morning, everybody. All right. How many of you here are parents? Not many. So you're planning ahead, getting ready. You're studying before the big test. No, that's what they say, right? They say at school you learn your lesson and then you do your test, right? But then parenting, it's more like you do your test and then you learn your lesson. You know? There's a lot of things you just don't know. There's no way you can study for it. But you're doing okay. You're gonna study a little bit. Okay, so I will talk about how to raise multilingual children based a lot on my own experience, not on experience of raising multilingual children, but being a multilingual child who grew up. I'm really basically replicating what I lived through myself. Part of it is an overlap of what I did last year. I added an element of a strategy that we use at home and elaborate a little bit into that. So some of you who I think were here last year will probably see some similar material. But it's okay, reinforces, all right? So, first things first. So who am I? So, you know, the agenda will be first about who am I, to give you the background of my history and how I grew up so that you can put yourself into context. And then Ronnie. Actually, I should say Ronnie and the kids, but most of my material is based on him. All the data comes from my first test. Okay, and then I could give you some backgrounds, very simple, about the strategies and goals we use, OPO and CLAP. Okay, I say simple in that I mean I don't do a lot of intervention. I create environments. Infrastructure, I would say environment, but I do not intervene a lot, which I think is one important difference between what we do and what Della and her family, I think, do. Okay? And then I'll reiterate some stuff that I talked about last year, which is the importance of starting early. And this is the new part, au pairs. We've been using au pairs in our family for 2 years, so I'd like to tell you a little bit about some advantages, disadvantages, and some experiences that we've had. Okay, so that's the outline. Let's get right into it. So, this is me. I was born in Hong Kong, and my father is from Taiwan. My mother is from Japan, so they met in neutral territory. Okay. And but quickly, before I was 1, the whole family moved back to Taiwan. So really, Hong Kong for me is just the place where I was born. So I have no recollection of my childhood in Taiwan. First time I went back to Hong Kong was when I was 16. So it's not a place that I would say I'm from Hong Kong, even though I was born there. And then at schooling, I started in Taiwanese kindergarten, but that was only for the first year, and then I was quickly transferred to an American elementary school. This was a strategy by my parents to expose me to English as soon as possible. And then I had a Taiwanese nanny, and I spent weekend at my grandparents. Now that's important because my grandparents are from an area in the middle of Taiwan, in Hsinchu, which is an area where they speak what is called Hakka, is a dialect in Taiwan. It's an important dialect. And I also spoke Taiwanese, which is an important dialect in Taiwan. About 75% of the people speak Taiwanese, so that's also, I was exposed to that. So I'd say my first years, first period of my life, Taiwan years, I was exposed to these 5 languages: Mandarin, Japanese, Taiwanese, Hakka, and English. I spoke Japanese with my mother, Mandarin with my father, and then English at school, often Hakka with my grandparents and relatives on my father's side, and Taiwanese with my friends in the streets. Okay? Then I came to Quebec. After my elementary school, I came to Quebec. First time I was exposed to French, and it was definitely a sink or swim, or swim or sink situation thrown in there. The teacher on day one tells me, "Hey, we have a new kid. Please introduce yourself." So I start. "Hello, my name is..." No, en français. I go, "Okay, oui." Though I knew 2 words, and I had to answer every question with those 2 words, but people ask me, "How old are you?" No. Didn't work too. So I learned very quickly. So when I came to Quebec, I actually lived with my aunt. That's my father's youngest sister. I never met her before, but she married a Quebecer, and she had lived in Quebec for, I think, 20, 30 years by then. And then during these years, it's all the way up to when I was about 28 or 29. So these were the languages that I was exposed to through university courses, through traveling. So I was exposed to, obviously, French when I got here. I learned Spanish traveling. Had German, Italian, Portuguese. Well, German and Italian at the university, and then Portuguese, again, traveling. Then the third period of my life, I moved to Japan. So I completed my graduate studies. I went to Japan, and I figured I'd go there to work and also to build my network because I wanted to use my Japanese and my Mandarin somehow in my career. So I figured I'll just go there and start my work there, and I'll probably build a network and then come back and somehow work with Asia, or at least Japan. And that's exactly how it's turned out. Today I am working in clinical research. I'm a project manager managing clinical studies, but my team is in Japan, so I work at night. Basically, after dinner is when my work day starts. Okay? But I get to spend my day, sleeping a lot, but during the day. But I also get to say, well, it's looking nice outside, 3 o'clock, I pick up my kids, we can go skating, we can go skiing, right? And come back, have dinner, put them to sleep, I can start my work. So that's sort of how I work today. So we came back in 2015. Actually, I skipped a part. So 2 years ago, we came back, and now that's how I'm working. And I also started organizing LangFest at that time. So long story short, 5 languages by 6, and 5 more languages by 20, and that's pretty much, half my life ago, I've stopped learning more languages. I've decided, 10 is enough. I speak 5 fluently. These are the 5 that I consider myself fluent in: English, French, Japanese, Mandarin, and Spanish. And I've decided not to add any more, but reinforce these when I have an opportunity, or not. Doesn't really matter. I'm not thinking about getting any better. It's more about this guy and the other 2. First, this guy. It started with him. So what you're going to see is about Ronnie. But there are clips of Nika, my daughter, also. So some background on Ronnie. He was born in Japan, like Nika, in Nagasaki, where my wife is from, in July of 2012. So he just had his 5th birthday about a month ago. And from the get-go, my wife, who's Japanese, would always speak Japanese to the kids, and I would always speak Mandarin, and there's no changing. It's always one person, one language. Some people call it one parent, one language, but for us, we need it to be more. So it's one person, one language, OPO, okay? And my wife at that time was studying at the university, so I got a job where I could work from home, so I was in Nagasaki a lot. But we were waiting for her to graduate before coming back to Canada, where we thought it's a better place to raise our kids. So we had a little blank of about a year and a half, 2 years. So I decided I would take Ronnie to Taiwan and strengthen his Mandarin. So I have friends there. And so I put him in an American daycare so he would get exposed to English very young and Mandarin through me and the family. And Japanese when Yuko was around or when my mother would come help us take care of the kids. And so the 3 languages were the first ones that we exposed him to until he was about 36 months or 3 years old. That's when we all came back to Quebec. Okay, it seems like a long life, but this is only 3 years. Okay, but we've done these stuff. We came back to Quebec. Now we put him in a French daycare, naturally, in Quebec. And we decided to employ au pairs. Okay, one from Mexico and one from Denmark, and she spoke very good English. So, well, actually, we're now at our 3rd au pair. So there were overlapping periods. So one girl was from Denmark, and she was there overlapping with our Mexican au pair for a few months. Hang on. So that's addition of French and Spanish when they were when he was 3 years old. So this is the crew. Basically, this is how we do multilingual environment at our home. Okay. So Japanese, the Japanese crew. Here's mom, and here's my mom. Okay. So they're Japanese, native Japanese speaker. Only speak Japanese to the kids. Never change. Okay. Mandarin, myself and my father. People always ask me, well, you speak Japanese or French to other people. They know you speak different languages anyways. Well, why do you have to stick to one language? And the quick answer is, it's all about habit. Okay, you have to remember. I don't know. I think somebody had it was Kirsten yesterday talk about learning languages through habit. Everything is we don't have a boot camp for languages or anything. We take time, and it's day after day, and it's just exposure, and it's building a habit. So when you talk to somebody, I'm sure you've had this experience. You know this person speaks 2 languages, 3 languages, 4 languages, but you're always speaking one specific language to this person. That's a habit, right? I know some people can speak French, but I always speak English to this person. It's just kind of weird. When I came to Quebec, I lived with my aunt. She's a Taiwanese native. I know she speaks Mandarin. Her Mandarin is native, and I was hoping that I could speak Mandarin with her all the time, because I just came to Quebec. I knew nothing in French, but she insisted that I speak French with her. At 13 years old, I came here. I had to speak French all the time with my aunt, but in a matter of weeks, it built a habit, and every time I speak Mandarin with her, it's just weird. Okay? It's strange, but that's what we're trying to create. So it doesn't matter if I know that she speaks Mandarin to other people, or my kids know that I speak different languages to other people. That's not the point. The point is he speaks Mandarin with me. And that habit, you create that habit and you don't change, is what we think is the path of least resistance. Okay? Next, French. I mean, living in Quebec, obviously French, you have a lot of exposure. Everywhere is French, TV is French, go to school in French. And his best friend is also French. So this is his best friend, Axel. He would come very frequently to our home, and they would play in French. This is Axel's little sister. And then I told you English. This is our au pair from Denmark. She would speak English with the kids all the time. And this is our environment, okay? So again, the strategies and goals, if I summarize very quickly, OPO, one parent or one person, one language, and CLAP is something that I invented. But just the acronym. I didn't invent the concept. This has existed forever, and every polyglot talks about it. It's basically building language learning elements into your life. If you take the bus, you take that time and you learn whatever language you want to learn. If you have an iPhone, you change your operating system to the language that you're learning, that kind of stuff. Build language learning opportunities and elements into your life. So build a context for learning the languages. So that's what we do. And the real goal is really to create the environment. Not a process, create an environment that allows use of languages naturally. And one big element of that is to have one person designated to speak one language, or one institution, whatever, that specific designated person or place that requires that language. So I'm going to show you a very boring, mundane little video. Okay. It's only 1 minute, but I'd like you to see everything that happens in this minute, and this is representative of Ronnie's life on a daily basis. Let me put this in full mode. So, 1 little minute.
Ronnie, this little car. Ronnie, little car. Uy, me ata.
Ronnie?
Ronnie, ¿me pasas la matraca? Sí. ¿No tienes la verde? Ay, se me fue. Pásala de nuevo. ¿Tienes la verde? No está, ¿no? ¿Qué hiciste, no?
La verde.
Ajá, ¿dónde está la verde? La matraca verde.
No, es azul.
Pero había una verde.
No es una verde, es una azul.
Dale.
Have you made the trek here, Randy? Is it your trek? Wow. Excellent, you made it by yourself?
Yeah.
Wow.
真的吗？你这个叫什么？你刚刚是在玩什么？
Trains.
In 1 minute, 5 seconds, he used all his 5 languages without skipping a heartbeat. So basically, it's just natural. He knows that, oh, this person or this voice that I hear, I recognize it, and immediately the channel changes. Okay? There's no translation in his mind, obviously. It's just a natural thing. It just flips around. Let me come back to the presentation. So this really summarizes our strategy. I could stop the presentation here, and you'd know pretty much what we do. Okay? But I'd like to get into some elements of why we start so early. Some people ask me, you got to learn one language at a time and then make sure it's correct before, or else it's going to get confused and whatnot. I'm sure there's pros and cons. I grew up in a multilingual environment. I think I'm not too confused. I know that I don't mix languages unless it's intentional. So I think they can do it. So this is our strategy. And we started from day one, even before. I mean, I talked to Yuko's tummy in Mandarin, even before he was born. So importance of starting early, I think there are 4 points. I'll develop more on the first 2 points. Second two, the last 2, they're important, but they're pretty much self-explanatory. So first is learning multiple languages like a native speaker. So they can capture all the sounds, I think, very clearly. Any baby born in any country in the world of any race can learn any language. We know that for a fact, whereas adults have a little bit of harder time for some reason. And there must be some reason. There are many explanations. I don't know what is right, but I know that from first-hand experience and from observation, at least I think this is the right way, and that's how we move forward. Whoops, sorry about that. So second point is about self-consciousness and self-esteem. Third point is some brain benefits, and fourth point, opportunity cost. So I'm not going to get into heavy economics. So this is the first point, so the importance of starting early. This is a graph that I found in a little video from a TED Talk by a professor from Washington State University. This is Patricia Kuhl. And her very popular video called "The Linguistic Genius of Babies" was a revelation. Well, it really showed us a lot of elements of sort of demonstrating to me that we're doing the right thing. And the first was this, the critical period hypothesis. It's an observation. I don't know the mechanisms of this, if it's true or false, or if it's all proven, but at least we know that from an observational perspective, we know that kids learn languages very well, to a very high level, native level, until a range of 3 to 7 years old. They have this capacity of learning to a very, very high level, if not native level. Then it goes down systematically for whatever reason. It goes down, and by the time you're in your teens and your 20s, 30s, most people have a very difficult time to learn up a language to a native level. Just an observation. There are exceptions, but the majority is like this. And I'll first do this. In our family, my mother always talked about this. I didn't really know what that was about until a few years ago. See. She would tell me about different languages that occupy different zones on this. This is the auditory spectrum, sound spectrums, or sound frequencies. Okay, so these are in hertz. So from 50 hertz to 20,000 hertz is sort of the range where people can hear. Okay, anywhere higher than that, like maybe only bats can hear. At least for us, this is how it is. And they say, Japanese is sort of in the low range. So this is a logarithmic scale. For those of you in science would know. I don't know. Most of the low range up to like 1,500. This is the Japanese, and English would be like in the higher range. So this just sort of says that if you're a Japanese monolingual, then you will be very used to sounds that are produced in this range, whereas sounds in this range that you're not exposed to a lot, you'll have a difficult time to differentiate sounds and intricacies in this area. So that's sort of what this graph shows. So we have an English speaker and a Japanese speaker, and this sort of shows an example of how an English speaker would hear the sound R and L. So many people know that Japanese people have a very difficult time differentiating between the R and the L. So they would hear light and right as the same thing, or vase and bass. So it sounds the same to them. I always thought it was because of their vocal muscles, whatnot. They hear it correctly, but they can't pronounce it, is what I thought. But I tested out on my colleagues in Japan. As they turn around, I'll say light field, right field. And I can't tell the difference. It was quite shocking, but that's just how it is. Really showed me that it's because they can't hear it well. And obviously, if you can't hear it well, if you have a tough time deciphering it, if you can't decipher it, then you can't understand it. If you can't understand it, then Professor Krashen says, well, if you can't understand it, then your chances of remembering it and integrating it into your language are very low. So in a sense, this sort of goes with the input hypothesis also. So a Japanese would have larirurero, which is sort of like the middle between L and R, and they hear this very well. It's a more simplistic sound, okay? And so we say the kids will hear very well. They hear the differences, and they become very demanding with accents. And here's an example. Yeah.
这个嘞，啊，这个也是不一样啊。
P-E-R-T-Y Percy
Oh, very good! Wow!
Percy
Percy， 我以为你会说 Percy， 那 Percy，
不是 Percy 是 Percy
Very good, Percy。
不是 Percy シ
不是パーシーは日本語ね。日本語の時はパーシーっていうのね。
パチじゃプーチ
パーシーね。おー。わ
クチシシシシシ
あ。違うね。
TOB はトビ
トビ
All right. So here's one more. So he's with my sister-in-law, so his aunt. Put this. And he becomes very
是
五六
六
七
七
八
八
九
九
十
十。
Yeah.
Okay.
Little teacher.
Okay. Thank you.
okay. And I remember me doing that. and I saw this, I thought, wow.
Hey, Glad Monster.
Hang on. Okay, so back to my thing here. So, hearing accent is something that's important. That's something that I think you can only acquire when you're very young. And Tim Keeley will definitely say that's not true. And from a mechanistic perspective, I can agree with him that there's probably exceptions in how to do it. It's the how to do it, but I really don't know. But I know that the observation is that most kids will learn accents better than adults. And this is another very important aspect, I think, to start early. Now, kids, I don't want to say it this way, but they're not quite human. in the sense that, you know, they don't have that self-consciousness, self-awareness before their age 4, 5, right? Most adult language learners, I would say, myself included, that we're conscious of, of making mistakes and, what will people think of me, and, So I have a little video that really demonstrates this, and the reason why we would start early. I mean, picture if I see a nice car, a Porsche, and I see a guy next to him, and I really want that Porsche. I want to ride in that Porsche. What are my options? What would I do? I just go up to him and say, "Hey, can I use your Porsche?" The chances of success are not very high, but for a kid, that's exactly what you do. So we are in Taiwan. This is just a few weeks ago. We're in Taiwan, and so we have Andrea was trying to put some bug spray, bug repellent on him, and he sees something he wants. And like I say, kids want to communicate. They don't care about losing face or making mistakes. All they care about is communicating and getting to where they want or what.
干嘛哭？会哭？
又回去。哦。
aquí.
Así, mira. Mira, ¿qué?
So it's now his toy almost. But this is how they make friends. This is how they make acquaintances. Why not, right? And we can argue that that's because the other person is also a kid. And yeah, sure. I mean, so that's the advantage of being a kid. They can just do what they want to do and say what they want to say and not get into trouble. I mean, if I did that with the guy with the Porsche, then chances are I could end up in jail, right? So that was the second point. Now, third point is there's a lot of research on the advantages of learning multiple languages, early or late, doesn't matter, but at least these are all positive effects of learning multiple languages. And they say the earlier the better. This is a nice secondary effect. We're not aiming for this. And opportunity cost, I say this in a very large sense, is that kids have time. they have a lot of time, and they don't do a lot of things, and they do repetitive things. So why not take advantage of that time and let them learn languages? Because later in life, we all know we're all too busy. If you have to take time to study a language, and that time is used up, and you can't do something else, like biology, for example. I studied biology, maybe because I didn't have to study languages. I love languages, but I had a chance to go another path because I saved that time. Doing it the same for them. Hopefully they'll use their languages when they're older. I'm sure they will in any career. So next, getting into a new items that I added for this year about au pairs. When I said the word au pair, did everybody know what that meant? Because for me, it was a new word. Au pair is usually a person, usually young female. But I know Richard was an au pair once upon a time. And this person usually goes to live with a host family in a foreign country over a certain period of time, from a few months to 1 year, maybe even 2 years. This person usually takes on child-caring tasks, and they can help with some housework in exchange for room, board, and some small pocket money. And these are often students who are finishing their school, and they have this gap year, or they finish their university and they want to take a year off before starting to work. And these are often people who want to learn new things, experience new cultures, completely redundant, want to experience new culture and or learn new cultures and experiences. Sorry about that. I wrote that in the car this morning on the way here. So, employing au pairs we found it very effective. And here's an example. Our first au pair, her name was Angelica. And in a matter of months, we're talking, she came in August. It's August 7th, I think. And I uploaded this video in October. So a matter of a month and a half, this happens. So remember, at this point, he's got Mandarin, English, and Japanese. And he's just started Spanish with the au pair and some French at the daycare. So this is playing with...
¿Cuenta hasta 5?
No.
Yo.
No. Sí.
Yo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Aquí. Aquí.
¿Dónde estás?
Aquí.
¿Dónde?
Abajo de la mesa.
¿Abajo de la mesa?
Sí.
¡Wow!
你跑到哪里去？
我跑到这边来吃。
真的吗？
是。
哇，你那么厉害啊！
俺这个知道妈妈。
Okay. Grammar is all over the place. But what's important is he knows who to talk to. I mean, who's talking to him and knows which language he should use at that moment. Okay. Six weeks, I think, that was. And we already saw the effects, and we really found out that this was the way to go, and we've been doing this for 2 years. Over the 2 years, we've had some lessons learned. We still think about why we're doing this, and we're quite convinced that this is a great way to raise our kids. And I've summarized this here. So, benefits, we have to think about not just us, but benefits to the au pair. This is why they're coming to our home. So for them, it's a new language, new culture. Coming from Mexico, living in Quebec, they have French and English to look forward to. And in our family, they also have Japanese, Mandarin to look forward to. Specifically, Andrea really loves, our latest au pair, she really loves the Japanese culture, anime, and so we hit it off very quickly. We did some Skype interviews, and we thought she was a great fit. And she came to our home last year. It's about exactly a year and a month ago. So she's been with us for a long time. So what things we can offer as living circumstances is what you have to think about. We live in Bromont, which is about an hour outside of Montreal. There's a ski hill. So when I look for au pairs, I would note down the things that could potentially interest people who love sports. So Caroline is a Danish girl that came to our home, and she's just an outdoor girl. She loves everything that has to do with nature and outdoors. And we bought her a ski pass, and she was pretty much at the hill every day. During the day, the kids aren't there, so she has that free time, and we encourage her to go off and hiking and skiing and skating. We have an arena. So there's a lot of things to do in Bromont in terms of outdoor activities. But if we need the girl who loves that in order for us to offer that value. If the girl doesn't really care about that, she's an indoor girl, then we wouldn't invite her over. So these are things you have to think about. What are the things that are important, not just for you, but that you think you can offer that are of value? Because let's face it, we're not hiring somebody, and paying a big salary. That's not the point. We're exchanging, what we can offer in terms of environment, in terms of culture, and what are they looking for. So she loves Japanese. We gave her Japanese lessons. I paid her French lessons. And that's how we negotiate and find the agreements. Benefits to us, obviously, these are exactly the reason why we're looking for au pairs, is a continuous exposure to a target language. So we hire the au pair, she would speak only Spanish to the kids. With us, she can speak any language she wants. If she wants to improve her English, we speak English for a while. If she wants French, we can do French. We also let her do Japanese with, Yuko, my wife, would sometimes just speak Japanese with her. So continuous exposure in native accent. This is not just for your kids, but my wife also learned up a lot of Spanish because, she would see Andrea speaking in Spanish to the kids, and kids, they say the same things over and over. It's not a large vocabulary. We're not talking rocket science, right? So even the parents could learn from that. And second point, I think, it's second, but I think it's one very important point that's different from tutors or people who come in and out. This is somebody who lives in our home. She's part of the family. And there is a bond, there's a loving relationship that forms between the kids and the au pair. And there are experts that say, learning a language, you can expose the kids through TV, but the benefits would be limited. what would be important there is if you have a real person speaking with them, there's holding, there's hugging, there's that bond, there's that love, that increases your chances of learning the language significantly. Okay, so that's an important thing you can learn. And of course, she's there. Free time, we can always negotiate. Get them to help around the house, dishes, some laundry, and it's not only for them, but it's also for us learning a new culture, learning a different way of thinking. The Mexican way, we usually have Mexican au pairs. I mean, my family is also learning a lot about Mexican way of thinking, not just time. Sorry for the inside joke. So a few things to be careful of. I was thinking there would be a lot, but I resumed it to these two, really. It's all about, I can even resume it to one word, but it's communication. So it's learning on both sides. So we've lived different lives for 20, 30 years. Coming from Mexico and us from Asia, there's bound to be booby traps all over the place. So we have to be careful of cultural differences, and sometimes even between au pairs. So we had two au pairs for a while. One's Danish, one's Mexican. So there are things that there's different cultures within there. You have to be in there to intervene. And this is sort of the byproduct of this. There's a goodbye after 6 months, 1 year, and this is tough for the au pair. It's tough for us, but it's probably very tough for the kids, especially as they're growing up. They're understanding more, and I know that this year Andrea is going to leave in October, and this is going to be really, I think, really tough for my kids. And I'll show you something. This only came in like last week, and I decided to put this in here. It'll show you how tough the goodbye is going to be in a month. So here's the situation. We were all in Japan, and Nika, a daughter, was saying goodbye to Andrea because she's going to our other apartment for the night, okay? Coming back in the morning. Okay? And look at how difficult the goodbye is.
Ratito dormir, la punta de tía, ¿ok?
Sí, está bien. Y mañana nos vemos.
Ok.
Está bien. Gracias. Mañana, temprano.
Ok, mañana.
Descansa. Buenas noches.
No te vas a tener.
Hasta mañana. Te cuidas.
Anda mañana.
Mañana nos vemos.
Ok.
Pero te tienes que dormir un ratito.
La punta de tía. La punta de tía, ok, Andrea.
Y pesadillas.
Ok, sí.
Descansa. Buenas noches. Hasta mañana.
Ok.
Mañana temprano.
That's a goodbye until tomorrow morning. So we've got a very tough goodbye coming up in about a month. And so, just to conclude very quickly, for us, employing an au pair was a difficult, well, not difficult, but it was, we had to weigh the pros and cons, a lot of discussions with my family. There was some resistance at the beginning. It is, having a girl into our house, also. But after 2 years, we know that this is a great way for our kids to learn a new language, new culture, receiving love and care and broadening their horizons. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's just lots of benefits, and you can get some help in the house. That's a bonus. Okay, and on the flip side, I hope that we have played a role in Andrea's life and in the lives of the au pairs that come into our home. So I will leave you with a final little video summarizing what we've had. Hang on. The 2 years with the au pairs that we've had over the years. Is it on full screen? Whoops, sorry. Let me play this.
Uno.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Vamos a buscar a Mapa.
¿Mapa?
Mapa. Muy bien. Vamos a buscar al pájaro. Es un tucán. Pájaro. Muy bien. Vamos a...
千の風になって
Venga. Cabeza, hombro, rodillas, pies. Cabeza, hombro, rodillas, pies, rodillas, pies. Ojos, orejas, boca y nariz. Cabeza, hombro, rodillas, pies, rodillas, pies. Mica.
光になって畑に降り注ぐ冬は
Vamos a ponerle este, Ronnie. A ver qué sale. Ok, una cucharada de eso aquí, ¿ok? Hacia el rasito, al ras. No, llena. Oh, sí, pero así, mira. Mira así, golpecitos. Y le quitamos lo demás. Así, ¿ok? Ajá.
夜は星になってあなたを見守る 私のお墓の前で泣かないでくださいそこに私はいません死んでなんかいません千の風千の風に千の風になってあの
¡Ah!
Thank you. All right, I will field some questions. Or questions for Andrea? Yeah. Yes? They speak, well, in this case, it was English. Caroline, she's Danish, and she didn't speak any Spanish. And her thing was not about learning a new language, so she didn't really want to learn Spanish. She did take a few lessons in French, but amongst them, it was in English. It's good practice for Andrea, too. Yes, Kendall? There's a site called operaworld.com. I mean, there's a gazillion sites, but that's the one I love. Yeah. Yes?
How would you describe the initial contact with the first au pair if you spoke Spanish and the kids didn't know any Spanish?
I'm not too sure I got the question.
So the initial contact with the first au pair with the kids.
Yep.
How was that? If
The
they
very
didn't know
first,
any Spanish?
nothing really, because Ronnie was 3, and just like that kid in the park, he doesn't really care if he understood or not. You know, it's a nice girl, plays with him, and they just start learning. Louder.
She couldn't understand Chinese, Japanese, so English was the only way to communicate with them. So in Taiwan, we were happy to have an English environment.
I forget very quickly.
Yeah, it's 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know if families where the parents are polyglot utilize sign language with their kids when they're babies more than others?
I know that there are parents who use sign language to start before the kids can actually speak. So, but whether there are polyglot families who specifically do that, I don't know. Maybe Richard has an answer to that. I'm not too sure. So do you know of any other family that specifically incorporate sign language plus different languages? No, eh? No. Yes, sir. No, not at all. Do you want me to develop on that? Not at all. Oh, because I grew up. I can show you an example of. I'm going to go over. It's okay. I decide. It's my festival. No, I'm kidding. I have a minute. It's not going to be long. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Hang on. Where's the... Okay, so here's... I'll put this here. So you're, for example, there are many parents who see...
Hello, dear. Ding, 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 ding. How to me? How to me? How do you do?
Hello, pala.
What he said? I want para taberu. Can anybody tell me what that means? Okay. Para is guava in Mandarin. I want. Para is Mandarin. Taberu is Japanese to say we eat. So there's 3 languages in that short sentence, and this is called code switching. And many parents are worried when they see this. That was 2 years and some. He was just beginning to learn English, I think. And yes, he uses what he can. He's got vocabulary and he's just pulls it. He doesn't care if it's English or French or anything. But that clears up as you saw in one of my first videos. He knows who's talking, which language it is, switches over there, no problem whatsoever. If he does any kind of mixing languages today, it's intentional. At that time, it was not. And many people get worried about this, but this is not a problem at all. Any other questions? Yes?
In your own life, do you feel that you're dominant in one of your languages, or are, I know Ilan Stavins, who I guess he's a professor somewhere in Canada here, Mexican Jewish background, so he grew up speaking about 4 languages, Spanish, Hebrew, Yiddish, and English, and he says like something like English is my mind and Spanish is my heart, and you know, I'm just paraphrasing. I don't
Yep.
remember. He has a beautiful essay about how the different languages are different parts of himself. How about for you?
I wrote a little blog post about this, that I feel like I have a different personality when I speak different languages. That is true. In terms of when you say dominance, on the other hand, that I don't know. I don't think so. My English mind or my Japanese mind, it's just different. I don't think one is more dominant over another. In terms of fluidity, yes. It's English, French, Japanese, Mandarin, Spanish, in that order. Yeah.
Do you write in all of those languages?
I can type in all of those languages. And that's because I can read. I can read, hence I can type. I can sound out the words in Japanese or in Mandarin. I can type it, but I can't use my hand to write it. And people ask me, well, if you can read, why can't you write? Then I tell them, I can recognize your face, but I can't draw it. And that is exactly how it is, right? Any other questions? Time? Is that where you're trying to go?
It's more like to say to everyone
Okay.
that after this presentation, we're going to go to the auditorium, everyone. This is going to be prize handing and other surprises for you.
All right, so let's wrap it up. Auditorium, please, everybody. Thanks.